Okay, so dinner lately has been really delicious. I feel like I'm finally getting a handle on how to eat on my Real30. And so I shared a photo. I've been sharing a lot of photos of my dinner plate, and last night's delicious was super delicious. And I got a couple people asking over on Instagram and sending me Facebook messages wanting to know how I make my mayo, how I clarify my butter, all of that. Okay, so if you are going to do this, you need to get the Whole30 book, and you also need to get the Whole30 cookbook because the cookbook has so many amazing recipes in it. It's totally worth the investment, and this is something that you might not be 100% all in for forever, but if you're like me, you're going to continue to incorporate some stuff like this. Okay, so my first thing I ever tried making was Whole30 mayo. So their recipe, I followed their recipe, except for the first time I used regular light olive oil, like extra virgin olive oil. It was disgusting. It was so gross. I was like, there's no way I can do this. No, it was a terrible first impression. It tasted like melted plastic. So a girlfriend told me, don't use the olive oil, use avocado oil. Totally worth it. Okay, so my recipe is pretty simple. I follow this essentially. You take one egg and you want it to be room temperature, or I put it in a cup of hot water and just let it get happy so it's not like doing anything weird. So it's getting happy in its cup of hot water, and then I go ahead and throw in my food processor or your blender, preferably a food processor. I throw in let's see, what do I do? A quarter cup of the oil, of the avocado oil. I crack the egg, I add that bad boy in. I added half a teaspoon of mustard powder, half a teaspoon of salt, and yeah, and you just blend it until it gets happy and nice and like mixed in, and then you slowly add in another cup of your avocado oil. Slow, okay, slow. This is like Friday night, okay, slow. All right, and then I use the juice of half of a lemon, and that's how I make my mayo. So it doesn't really make that much. I was just thinking about it the other night. I can get 2 batches of my Real30 mayo out of a bottle of avocado oil, which is like what, like 14 bucks? And I only get like a small amount. Like it doesn't even fill up my small Tupperware. So I think I am out of avocado oil. I think I'm just going to try like the Whole30 approved mayo in the store and see how that goes. Because even initially I was like, this is way too much money. I'm not going to spend that much on mayo. But now that I'm making my own, I'm going to try it and see what it's like. So if you've tried it and you like the Whole30 approved mayos in the store, please let me know. I don't want to waste my money. But it's also, I don't know, it's kind of an investment. But the mayo, my taste buds, my palate has definitely changed, where I used to need like ranch and blue cheese. And it sounds really weird. I feel like I'm summoning my grandpa, but I actually dipped my cucumber in just plain mayo the other night, and it, like, just a smidge, just a little bit. It was good. So the other thing I've been using a lot of, and I will continue to do probably, is clarifying my butter. It sounds super fancy. It's not complicated. You throw your butter in a pan, a saucepan. You cook it at low temperature. And then you just skim the dairy off the top. Easy peasy, right? It sounds like it's super complicated, like you're in the barn churning the butter. You're not, okay? You just melt the butter slow and low and slow, and then you skim off the white on top. Super easy, and now you have clarified butter. I did that at the beginning of my Real30, so it's been 41 days ago, and I'm still using the same container. So this is what I do every single night because you eliminate grains. I'm not a huge grain person anyway, but we would have a lot of like rice and stuff. I didn't really realize how much rice we had. Not a pasta family, but we are kind of a rice family. So anyways, I started getting those little fingerling potatoes because I just needed some kind of starch sometimes. And I get the little tiny fingerling potatoes. I steam them. Just throw them in a basket in the steamer, right, with some water. I steam them until they're tender. And then in my saucepan, or my saute pan, I throw a bunch of my clarified butter. I melt it. Then I throw in a big, ginormous scoop of garlic, of that minced garlic. And I just like cook it real, like, you don't want to scald your garlic. There's nothing worse than that, right? But I just kind of like warm it up, right? I throw some kosher salt, and then I take those potatoes and I put them in there and I mix it all together. It is so freaking good, you guys. It is so good. So that was what was on my plate last night. I did the fingerling potatoes that were steamed and then thrown in my clarified butter, my salt and my kosher, kosher salt, and then my garlic. What else did I have? We just had a regular hamburger, whatever. There's nothing magical about my hamburger. I always have my hamburger not on a bun. I always have it on a stack of lettuce. And that homemade mayo is really good. So I had that, and we've been grilling our onions to put that on top. What else was on my plate last night? Last night I did the Facebook poll, like, how do you cook your Brussels sprouts? So I wound up finding a recipe online where you just throw some olive oil in a Ziploc bag. Yeah. You throw olive oil in a Ziploc bag with, what else? I added, I don't know, garlic, probably salt and pepper. I feel like I added something else, but I don't remember what it was. And so I just threw the cleaned up Brussels sprouts in the bag, which was so brilliant, right? Because when I always do it on my cookie sheet and I always like toss everything together, but it doesn't ever get evenly coated. So even though I was wasting a bag, which makes me kind of sad, my Brussels sprouts got evenly coated and they were delicious. So I just mixed them up in the bag and then I threw them on a foil lined cookie sheet so it's easier cleanup, right? I put that on one side of the cookie sheet and then I just tossed a whole bunch of carrots with some more olive oil on those, salt and pepper. I actually threw a splash of balsamic on it, and those were good. And I just threw them in the oven at 400 degrees for about half an hour, shaking them intermittently, and they were delicious. The carrots have been a big go-to for us lately. We've been doing a lot of carrots and a lot of sweet potatoes cooked that way. So, and I like, if you have garlic, like fresh garlic, I like to like put big chunks of cloves in there, and they kind of get like crispy and delicious. Major stinky breath, but super awesome. So those are just a couple of the recipes that I've been using lately because someone asked. So I'm like, I will share with you instead of having to type this all out. But definitely get the cookbook. The Whole30 book has a whole bunch of really helpful recipes as well. Don't use the regular olive oil in your mayo unless you want to puke, okay? It's just nasty. So it's definitely worth getting avocado oil for sure. Yeah, so those are my tips for you for this morning. I hope it helps.